The thing about humans is that they smile when they are about to ruin your entire existence. That I learned this the hard way. Sitting across from Ambassador Kira Vance in the negotiation hall of the Galactic Council Station, watching her perfect teeth gleam under the fluorescent lights like a predator bearing fangs. She had that look. You know the one. The expression that says, "I am being extremely reasonable right now," while simultaneously planning 17 different ways to dismantle your argument, your credibility, and possibly your will to live. That my name is Thellix Mora, Senior Trade Coordinator for the Vrynn Collective, and I had made a catastrophic error in judgment. I had assumed humans were soft. So let me get this straight, Kira said, leaning back in her chair with the casual confidence of someone who had absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain. You are telling me that the Vrynn Collective believes it has exclusive mining rights to the Andara Belt because your people discovered it first. That is correct, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. My three eye stalks focused on her with what I hoped was intimidating intensity. We filed the proper documentation with the council 70 cycles ago. The law is quite clear on this matter. She nodded slowly. Too slowly. That should have been my first warning. Fascinating, she said, and the way she drew out that word made my skin plates itch. And you are also aware that humanity filed a counterclaim 48 hours ago, citing ancient Earth maritime law, specifically the principle of salvage rights. I blinked. All three eyes. Separately. It was not a good look. Maritime law. I repeated. We are in space. There are no oceans here. Semantics, Kira said with a dismissive wave of her hand. The principle remains valid. You see, Thellix, may I call you Thellix? You may not. Excellent. Thellix, here is the situation. Your people might have found the Andara Belt first, but you did not actually start mining operations for 68 cycles after discovery. In human legal tradition, that constitutes abandonment. We, on the other hand, have already established 3 functional mining stations in the past standard month. My mouth parts went dry. You what? Oh, did I not mention that? Her smile widened. Yes, fully operational. Completely legal under salvage protocols. We even sent you an invitation to the opening ceremony. Did you not receive it? She knew damn well I had not received it. This is outrageous. I sputtered, my voice rising several octaves. The council will never accept such blatant theft of resources. Kira tilted her head, and for a moment, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Something ancient and dangerous. Something that reminded me that humans had clawed their way up from the bottom of their food chain by being better at violence than everything else on their planet. Theft is such an ugly word, she said softly. I prefer to call it aggressive resource reallocation. Behind her, I noticed her security detail for the first time. 2 humans in civilian clothes, standing so still they might as well have been furniture. Except furniture does not have that particular kind of alertness, that coiled readiness that suggested they could turn the entire room into a combat zone in approximately 3 seconds. I swallowed hard. The Vrynn Collective will not stand for this, I said, but even I could hear the weakness in my voice. We have legal recourse. We have allies. Do you though? Kira asked, and now she was leaning forward, her elbows on the table, her fingers steepled in front of her face. Because I took the liberty of speaking with the Kixer Assembly this morning. Lovely people. Very interested in our proposal for a mutual defense pact. And the Hellion Federation. They seemed quite enthusiastic about human technological assistance with their terraforming projects. My eye stalks drooped. She had been busy. You see, Thellix, she continued, her voice taking on that patronizing tone that made me want to throw something heavy at her head. Humanity has been playing the game of diplomacy for a very long time. Thousands of years. We have toppled empires, redrawn borders, and convinced entire populations that war was actually peace. We are very, very good at making people believe that our interests are actually their interests. That is manipulation, I protested weakly. That is politics, she corrected. And if you think that is impressive, wait until you see what we do when diplomacy fails. There was something about the way she said that last part that made every survival instinct in my body scream at me to run. But I am Vrynn. We do not run, that we make tactical retreats. Perhaps, I said carefully, there is room for negotiation. A compromise of some kind. Kira's smile returned, and this time it was almost genuine. Almost. Now you are thinking clearly, she said. I knew we could reach an understanding. 3 days later, I found myself in a situation that could only be described as cosmically unfair. The compromise, as it turned out, was not actually a compromise at all. It was surrender with extra steps and a pleasant-sounding name. Humans are exceptional at that sort of thing, wrapping terrible outcomes in shiny paper and calling them gifts. I stood in the observation deck of the human mining station Gamma 7, watching their extraction equipment tear through asteroids with the kind of efficiency that should have been illegal. Beside me, Kira sipped something hot from a ceramic container, looking entirely too pleased with herself. "Beautiful, is it not?" she said, gesturing at the systematic destruction of what had been Vrynn territory until very recently. "We call this model the Hellhound class excavator. It can process 40,000 metric tons of ore per standard hour." "Wonderful," I muttered, my voice dripping with enough sarcasm to corrode hull plating. "I am thrilled to witness the technological marvels that are stealing my people's resources." She laughed. Actually laughed. The sound was bright and cheerful, completely at odds with the fact that she had just committed what amounted to interstellar highway robbery with a smile and a handshake. "Oh, Thellix," she said, patting my shoulder with her soft, five-fingered appendage. "You still think of this as theft? How charmingly naive. This is business. And besides, your people are getting 30% of the profits. That is more than you would have made on your own in 5 cycles. We should be getting 100%, I said. It was our claim. Was being the critical word, she replied. Past tense. Do try to keep up. Before I could formulate a suitably cutting response, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed in sequence along the corridors, and the cheerful hum of mining equipment was replaced by the sharp wail of emergency protocols. That Kira's expression changed instantly. The pleasant mask dropped away, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. She tapped a device on her wrist, and her voice became clipped, professional. "Vance here. Report." A male voice crackled through the communicator. "Ambassador, we have 6 Crithian warships dropping out of jump space, bearing 347 Mark II. They are powering weapons and demanding we evacuate the belt immediately. They claim salvage rights under some obscure provision from the Treaty of Proxima." I felt a small surge of satisfaction. The Crithians were not known for their diplomatic subtlety. They preferred the direct approach, which usually involved large guns and loud declarations. Perhaps humanity had finally overplayed its hand. Kira looked at me, one eyebrow raised. "Friends of yours?" I may have mentioned our situation to a few contacts, I admitted, trying not to sound too smug. The Crithians have long believed that might makes right. They are not fond of human legal maneuvering. "How unfortunate," Kira said, but she did not sound unfortunate. She sounded interested. "Tell me, Thellix, how well do you know Crithian military doctrine?" "Reasonably well." "What?" She smiled again, and this time there was nothing diplomatic about it. This was the expression of someone who had just been handed an unexpected opportunity and was about to make the most of it. "Because you are about to learn something important about humans," she said. "We are not actually diplomats. We are apex predators who learned that talking is more efficient than fighting. But when talking stops working..." She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. The station's intercom crackled to life, and a new voice filled the air. Deep, calm, touched with an accent I could not place. "This is Captain Marcus Flynn of the human defense vessel Crimson Phoenix. Crithian Fleet, you are in violation of established mining rights and are hereby ordered to withdraw immediately. You have 5 minutes to comply." Through the observation window, I saw it. A human warship, sleek and dark, emerging from behind one of the larger asteroids like a shark rising from deep water. It was not the biggest ship I had ever seen, but there was something about the way it moved, the way it positioned itself between the mining station and the Crithian fleet, that made my internal organs clench. The Crithian response was immediate and predictable. "Human vessel, we do not recognize your authority here. Stand down or be destroyed. We outnumber you 6-1. There was a pause. A very long pause. I could almost hear Captain Flynn counting to 10 in his head. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. Still calm. Still professional. But underneath, there was something else. Something that suggested he had been hoping they would say exactly that. "Crithian Commander, I appreciate your confidence. Truly. But I feel obligated to inform you that you are making a significant tactical error. You see, your ships are older models. KX-42 class, If my sensors are correct. Good ships. Solid construction. But they were designed for fleet engagements, not precision combat. Another pause. The Crimson Phoenix, on the other hand, was specifically built to turn ships like yours into very expensive scrap metal. We have been tracking your approach for the past 17 minutes. I currently have firing solutions locked on all 6 of your vessels. Your shields are positioned for frontal assault, which means your aft sections are vulnerable. Your weapon systems are still cycling up from jump space, which gives me approximately 42 seconds of uncontested firing time. I stared at Kira. She was still sipping her drink, watching the scene unfold with the casual interest of someone watching a mildly entertaining sporting event. Captain Flynn continued. So here is what is going to happen. You are going to power down your weapons. You are going to turn around. And you are going to leave. Or, option 2, you can find out exactly why humanity spent the last 3 centuries perfecting the art of making things explode. Your choice. You have 4 minutes remaining. The Crithian fleet hung there in space, weapons still charging 0.3 minutes, 0.2 minutes, 0.1 minute. And then, slowly, almost reluctantly, their weapon signatures began to fade. Kira finally looked at me, her expression completely neutral. Still think humans are just talking? She asked. The Crithian fleet departed with all the dignity of a pack animal retreating from something higher on the food chain. I watched their vessels turn and accelerate away, their pride left floating somewhere among the asteroids along with their threats. Captain Flynn's voice came through the comm system one last time, sounding almost disappointed. Safe travels, Crithian fleet. Do visit again when you have better manners. Kira set down her drink and turned to face me fully, her expression shifting back to that diplomatic pleasantness that I now recognized as her hunting face. The face she wore when she was about to make a point that would stick with you for the rest of your natural life. Let me tell you a story, Thellix, she said, walking toward the observation window. Back on Earth, before we figured out space travel, before we even had electricity, my ancestors lived on an island. Small place, not many resources, and they were surrounded by empires. Big, powerful nations with massive armies and ancient traditions. I said nothing. Something told me interrupting would be unwise. Those empires looked at this little island and thought, easy target. Weak. Soft. But you know what happened instead. She glanced back at me. That little island built ships. Lots of ships. And they sailed those ships to every corner of the planet. They did not conquer through overwhelming force. They conquered through being absolutely everywhere, making deals, playing powers against each other, and occasionally reminding everyone that they were very, very good at naval warfare. I failed to see the relevance, I said, though I absolutely saw the relevance. The relevance, my dear Thellix, is that humanity has been doing this for millennia. We smile. We negotiate. We make treaties and shake hands and act like reasonable civilized beings. But underneath, she tapped the window, indicating the warship still hovering protectively near the station. Underneath, we are still the species that hunted mammoths with pointed sticks. We are still the apes that looked at every other predator on our planet and said, no, actually, we are in charge now. The mining equipment had resumed its work below, the brief interruption already forgotten. Business as usual. Human efficiency at its finest. So what happens now? I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. Now, Kira turned, spreading her hands in a gesture of openness that was probably as genuine as a holographic projection. Now you go back to the Vrynn Collective and you tell them exactly what you saw here today. You tell them about the compromise. You tell them about the 30% profit share. And you tell them about what happened when someone tried to take it away by force. She stepped closer, and I resisted the urge to step back. You tell them that humans are excellent partners. Fair. Generous, even. We honor our agreements. We respect the law. We believe in diplomacy and peaceful cooperation. Her smile widened. But you also tell them that every human diplomat has a warship on speed dial, and that we have been very, very patient with the galaxy so far. Is that a threat? I asked. Threats are so crude, she replied. Think of it as context. Helpful information for future interactions. We like being diplomats, Thellix. We genuinely prefer talking to shooting. But we are exceptional at both, and we have had 10,000 years of practice making sure everyone knows it. My communicator buzzed. A message from the Vrynn High Council. demanding an immediate report on the situation. They had probably detected the Crithian fleet and assumed the worst, or perhaps the best, depending on their perspective. I should return to my ship, I said. Of course, Kira agreed pleasantly. Transport is already arranged. Oh, and Thellix? One more thing. I paused at the doorway. We are opening 2 more mining stations next month. Sections 12 and 15 of the belt. Given our existing agreement, the Vrynn Collective will naturally receive the same profit-sharing arrangement for those operations as well. Unless, of course, you would prefer to renegotiate. The way she said renegotiate made it clear that any such renegotiation would somehow result in the Vrynn getting an even worse deal while being convinced they had won a victory. The current arrangement is acceptable, I said quickly. Wonderful. I do so enjoy working with reasonable people. 6 hours later, I sat in my quarters aboard the Vrynn transport vessel, composing my report to the High Council. I tried 3 different versions before settling on the truth, because any attempt to spin this situation would only make things worse when they inevitably found out what really happened. The report was simple. Humans had outmaneuvered us legally, backed up their claims with overwhelming force, and turned what should have been a disaster into a profitable partnership that we could not refuse without risking far worse consequences. They had smiled, negotiated, and reminded us that their entire species was built on the principle of being friendly right up until the moment they needed to be terrifying. I attached video footage of the Crithian fleet's retreat. That seemed important. The response from the High Council came faster than I expected. Just 2 words. Understood. Adapt. I leaned back in my seat, staring out at the stars. Somewhere out there, humanity was spreading through the galaxy like a virus made of handshakes and gunships. Making friends. Making deals. Making absolutely certain that everyone understood the rules of engagement, and the rules were simple. Humans preferred talking. They were excellent at diplomacy. They would negotiate in good faith and honor their agreements. But they were also apex predators who had spent their entire evolutionary history perfecting the art of being the scariest thing in any given situation while smiling pleasantly and offering you a drink. The galaxy was slowly learning what I had learned today. What the Crithians had learned when they retreated with their tails metaphorically between their legs. Humans were not pretending to be diplomats. They were predators who had learned that diplomacy was simply hunting with better vocabulary, and they were very, very good at it. I poured myself a drink from my personal supply and raised it toward the viewport, toward the distant stars where humanity was undoubtedly making someone else's day either much better or much worse, depending on how smart. They were about accepting the offered hand. To humanity, I said quietly, may the rest of us be wise enough to stay on your good side. The stars offered no comment. They rarely did, but somewhere out there, I was certain, Ambassador Kira Vance was smiling.